FOTL. Whew, 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 whew. Just ask for it. Trap dreams for a richer million. I ain't even have to trap for it. Blue benches, yo, not skinny like you walk around with a passport. Circle small, but we jump for it like a punt return or a tie score. Brookwood, Zach Shackleford. I'm the one who they rooting for. Trap dreams for a richer million. I ain't even have to trap for it. Blue benches, yo, not skinny like you walk around with a passport. Circle small, but we jump for it like a punt return or a tie score. Brookwood, Zach Shackleford. I'm the one who they rooting for. Yeah.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Again, One Life to Live, Dr. Coach A. That's me. Yeah, welcome back. So today, we're going to talk about the highs and lows of a coach, right? When I say the highs and lows, I mean that like emotional roller coaster that you end up on. Being a coach, going through the course of a game, how you handle it, what types of coaches there are, because you do see some of those coaches that do end up really high. You do see some of those coaches that end up very low. So again, follow me on Twitter, One Life to Live. That's the number 1 LYF, the number 2 LIV, the number 3 on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. You can also follow me on Twitter at Dr. Coach A. Also on Instagram at Dr. Coach A. And I won't waste too much of your time. I'm going to just dive right into what we call the highs and lows of coaching. So first part, right? How do you carry yourself? So how do you carry yourself as a coach? Are you one of those coaches that's like always super emotional, like always yelling? Are you one of those coaches that's just chill? You don't really let anything bother you. Are you one of those coaches that is real hype, when things are hype, and then as soon as things go bad, you like turn into, that jerk and you start yelling at everybody? Like, how do you carry yourself as a coach? I think it's super important for a number of reasons. Number one is your emotions can control or have an effect on how your kids' emotions are, right? So a lot of the times we don't really think about that as coaches, but if you pay attention sometimes on the sideline and you see that one coach going crazy, and then all of a sudden you see kids going crazy. But then if you see that coach that's always chill, always calm, a lot of the times you see that players kind of follow suit. So think about that. Like, just think about it for a second. Think about it from your perspective. Like, how are you carrying yourself as a coach? And again, it's different styles to it. Like I said, there's the hype coach. There's that coach that's always dancing, always, cheerful, always in a good mood. But then when things start going bad and now all of a sudden y'all down by 21, or your defense just gave up a big play, how do you go about carrying and handling, yourself from there? Are you still hyping? You still dancing? You still doing all that stuff? Probably not, right? And then again, same question can be asked for those coaches that are even keel, for those coaches that are always chill. Are you always chill even when you score, even after you win? Because I can't imagine winning the state championship as an even, kill coach and just being, this is what I expected. Nah, but again, to each his own. I'm just asking individually, think about that. Think about how you're carrying yourself. I know for me, when you look at a lot of young coaches, you could see some are nervous about what to do in certain moments, right? And I think the big piece of that is you want the kids to see you be you. And if you're not being you, kids will notice, right? And I say that from like the perspective of young coaches are trying to find themselves and trying to find their imprint and what they're going to be good at and how they want people to recognize them as they go through the process of coaching, right? And so when they're doing that, sometimes it can be a little nerve-wracking to be looked at as, the jerk, because sometimes you got to be the jerk, and then sometimes you don't want to be too hype or look too, cool in certain moments because you don't want the fans and you don't want, admin to think, oh, this guy's just a party guy. He's just always hype and screaming and yelling and doing things, in that manner. And so from that standpoint, sometimes you hold back just a little bit. And then sometimes, you get in those moments where things are going bad and you really want to yell at the kid, but you don't want their parents to see you yell at that kid, or you don't want, admin to see you in this light. So again, I just say, hey man, be yourself, right? I try to be me. That's the only person I can be. I don't look at any other coach and say, I got to emulate and do what that coach is doing, because that will never get me anywhere. That's never got me anywhere. I'm the coach that will wear long sleeves and pants in the summertime, and people think I'm crazy. And I tell my kids, I am a little bit. Yeah. If you think it's hot, I don't think it's hot. It's a mental thing, right? And so from that standpoint, like, I'm being myself. Everybody not gonna like you being yourself. Everybody's not gonna be on the same wave or the same, page as you, and that's all right. But it's you being you. If every coach out here came out with the same demeanor, the coaching football wouldn't be fun. You got to have that mixed bag of things on the sideline to make a team gel, to make a team work, to make a coaching staff work. So who are you with regards to how you carry yourself, right? Again, it's just the way things are, right? And then, the big piece is, the big piece is, you know, as you're being emotional, because it's okay to play this game with emotion. It's okay to show emotions when you play this game. As a kid, as a player, you're going to show emotions. I hope you're showing some emotions. It's about how you are able to turn that emotion off and turn it back on, and not let that emotion affect what you're doing. That's probably the big piece that I want to make sure, we understand, that it's okay to be emotional and get really high, right? But you don't want to get too high, because if you get too high, sometimes it's hard to come back down. And if you're always the guy that's too high, and what I mean by too high is you're always that person that is very emotional. And when I say very emotional, I mean like emotional, like really upbeat. And so let's reverse back for a second. So when I say, coaches that get too high, I mean that those coaches that get overly emotional, that let every aspect of the game affect who they are or affect how they react to things. For instance, team scores a touchdown, right? You see, there are certain coaches that all of a sudden they are, what I would say, just doing the most. And when I say doing the most, I mean like dancing, they turning flips on the sideline, they high-fiving everybody, they yelling across the field at the other team, at the other coaches, talking trash to the players on the field, letting everybody know exactly where they are in that moment, letting everybody see how emotional and how high they can be. I get it. I don't think I've ever been that guy to do that, but I get it. I see and I understand why people do that. Now, why not? Why should you not do that? Because the minute the other team scores, you got to hear it back. And not only do you have to hear it back, but some people be like, yo, keep that same energy, right? Keep that same energy when we score. Have that same energy when things aren't going your way, because that's when it's hard to do. That's when it's hard to get way too high, because you score, I score, you still gonna be dancing and jumping and turning flips. Because if I score twice before you score twice, I still want you to keep that same energy. Because for some people, that's the motivation to keep going. But again, how high is too high, right? So is it okay? Sure. Like I'm not in any way or any shape or form saying it's wrong to do those things, right? But you better know when to do it. You better know who you can do it against because it don't always go in your favor, right? Some kids love that. And that's how, some kids are motivated, right? Some kids see it and they feed off of it and they want you to do it and it makes them play better and all of that stuff. And I get it. I think again, there should be a coach like that on every team that's going high five and celebrate and dance with the kids every time those great things happen. Because again, you got to have those high moments. So, like I said, the game of football is that emotional roller coaster, and you're gonna have your up moments, you're gonna have your down moments. How high do you want to get? Don't get too high, right? Because again, when there is no high moment, like now, how you gonna react? Because the kids are still gonna be looking at you like, "Hey, man, come on, bro, you got it. Why you ain't dancing? Why you not hyping us up like you was last week? Why you not saying all the stuff you were saying? Because last week when you said it, it made me play better. Now, we down 21 and you quiet. Like, hook me up, coach. Help me out. Right? It's a funky feeling. It's an odd feeling when you always the hype guy. And it's also an odd feeling when you getting your butt kicked and now you the hype guy as well. Right. It's cool if your team feeds off of it for real and you come back and your kids don't never get really a lull moment. But you as a coach, you gotta understand when to be really high and when you can get low. Right. So as I said, you don't want to get too high. You probably also don't want to get too low. So no matter how bad it is, I know it's one of those cliche things, like no matter how bad it looks, like it's never that bad. And even, no matter how good of a win you had, it's really never as good as you thought it was. There's always something you could find to improve. So the same thing, no matter how bad it is, it's never as bad as it seems. Right? Every football game can be changed, or if you go back and watch a clip, right? If you miss a certain block that would have been picked up, maybe it's a touchdown. You get a pass that's thrown, and receiver, tight end, running back, just one step further down the field, maybe they catch it as a touchdown pass. So when you go about looking at things, like I said, sometimes it's never as bad as it might seem, right? So we also, get taught don't cry. Crying's for girls. But big thing that I heard a while back was like crying means it matters, right? If you see kids that are emotional and they're crying or again just being emotional, as long as they're handling it the right way, they're just showing you that that stuff matters to them. Now, I'm not saying you as a coach or us as coaches should be sitting on the sideline crying. I get it on senior night. I get it. Last game of the season. You do see those coaches that are crying. You do see those players that are crying. But as a coach, week one, mm, um, don't get too low. I've seen coaches. I've been a part of seasons where you lose a key part of your team to an injury, and as a coach, you want to cry, right? As a coach, you do get emotional because you feel bad for the loss your team is about to take or is taking. You feel bad for what that kid is going through or what they're about to have to deal with over the next 6 months to a year, however long those injuries may occur. But again, you're in those leadership positions for a reason. So if the rest of your team looks at you and they see you as being really low, then what happens? Right? How is everyone else going to carry on when you're the leader and you have nothing to give? right? So you can't be too low. Like I said, I heard something a few weeks ago that was really catching to me, and it said when you watch those young kids, the youth players, the 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and they lose a tournament, how often do you look over and you see one or two of those kids that are crying? Meanwhile, the rest of them are like, oh, get to go home, play Fortnite, right? It's not that it doesn't matter, but that one that's crying, everybody's going to walk over and say, hey, man, it's okay. Hey, man, you'll be fine. You'll get another chance. All that stuff. Everybody's going to walk over and tell that kid that's crying and being emotional those things. And the big piece of what I heard when I was listening to was don't tell that kid nothing. Let them sit and soak it in, because they are dealing with a loss. They are sitting there in their emotions, showing you that what they just invested in mattered. And I was like, man, that is crazy. That's deep. Never thought of it that way. Right. A lot of the times we look at the kids that are crying and we go, oh, that little baby. Oh, he's acting like a, whatever, a girl or anything less than what they are. And when we see those moments, that's the one it matters to. Right. Those are the kids that might have that, that Mamba mentality. Those are the ones that in the future, he's like, I don't never want to feel that again. I don't never want that to happen again. So think about that, as you move forward. If you're always low, when do you come up from that? Right. If you're one of those guys that's always, as you say, the Debbie Downer, you always look at the negatives, you always look at the downside of things. Like, at what point in time does something excite you? When do you get excited if you're always low? If you're always looking at the bad pieces of the game, the bad pieces of the players, at what point in time when does that player, what point in time in that game do you get excited? If it's just a win, like if it's only wins that make you excited, and I feel like you're doing this for the wrong reason. And that's my feelings. That's my personal opinion. I don't care if you like it. It is what it is. If the only time you're up in your emotions and you're hype and you're high, then is when you win, then you're probably doing this for the wrong reasons. My opinion. But again, you don't want to be too high. You don't want to be too low. So where exactly, do you want to be? And I would tell anybody, like I was told when I was started doing this, is you kind of want to be even keel. You want to be right in the middle, right? And if you're right in the middle, and you can have a low moment where you can get on that kid and you could be emotional with the kid because something bad happened, or they're not doing what they were coached to do. They're reverting back to something else. But you can also, now you could be a hype guy. Right, we just scored. You just got an interception. I'm gonna give you a high five. We're gonna, jump and hip bump or whatever you call that stuff in the air. We're gonna celebrate. We're gonna dance. We're gonna get under the tent and have some fun. Right, and then as soon as the moment's over, boom, you snap back, and again, right back in the middle, even keel. And it's funny for me to sit and talk about this and sit in, and even as I was putting my notes together to go over this, to think about some of the conversations that I have with people about, my coaching style, and how myself, I try not to yell at individuals. I'd rather yell at the group, because individuals hear yells and they don't always take it the way you hope they take it. A group might hear the yell, and now I'm not singling anybody out, I'm singling that unit out. And so a couple of examples of me yelling and it not going my way, or me yelling and me realizing in the moment, dang, I probably shouldn't have done that. Right. So the first one that comes to mind is it was probably third and something and at a cornerback. And this cornerback in particular was a young man that I really took under my wing. I still talk to him to this day. He kind of had things a little rough growing up. And when I say a little rough, it was to the point where yelling at him meant violence was about to happen. It meant negative things, bad things are getting ready to occur. So I know this. However, we're in the course of a football game. A play gets not made by him. As soon as he makes it to the sideline, I go off. I'm yelling. Now I'm in that high moment where my emotions are overkill, right? And I'm yelling at him. You should have did this. You're supposed to do this. If you would have blah, 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 and this, that, and the third, then boom, right? He then reacts the way he knows to react in those hostile yelling moments. And so he starts to yell too. And as soon as he starts to yell, it clicks. Dang, I shouldn't have done that. Not that it's a fear moment for myself. Not that, it's a it's a moment of realization of I forgot who I'm dealing with. I forgot what this kid is dealing with. I forgot this kid's background. Right. So other coaches are now running over, getting between us, grabbing the kid, grabbing me. My head coach is like, he's not going back in, this, that, and the third. That kid's done. If you want, we can send him home right now in the middle of the game. And I go, no, 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 no. That was my fault because I was the one that got too high. Right. So I get too high. Kid reacts. I gotta now fix it because I'm the adult, I'm the leader, I'm the one he looks up to, right? So kids under the tent, I am still standing in the coach's box. Third down comes, we're getting ready to go back on the field. This kid walks right over to me, puts his arm around me and says, "Hey coach, I heard you. I got you." I didn't have to apologize, I didn't have to do anything. It was just understood that when I said, "No, I'm wrong," to the other coaches that he recognized, just like I recognized that I was wrong in that situation because I got too high and I let my emotions get the best of me. Right. We go back on the field. I don't know why the team attempted to do the exact same pass concept like 2 plays later. This kid gets an interception, scores. I'm looking at the head coach like, I told you it was my fault and you wanted me to send him home. And the kid immediately runs over to me. Coach, I got you, man. I told you, my bad. I got you. I got you. So again, we can sit and we could be overkill and high emotional. But if you don't recognize that in certain situations, it could be a bad thing. Right. And that also goes with, knowing the players you're dealing with, knowing who you're working with. And that, of course, can help you navigate certain situations and help you do things certain ways. Another situation, and I was talking to a guy whom I look up to and I admire tremendously, just really a great guy. And he asked me about yelling and how come I don't yell and how come I'm always so just chill on the field. And I told him, that story. And I also was like, to be honest with you, I don't think the kids even listen or care when I yell. Like I think they feel a little more connected if I just walk over and say, "Hey, such and such, if you try this as opposed to that, this might be the result as opposed to the result we just got." Right. And you try to correct them in that manner of talking to them like men, because we essentially are coaching these young men to be men, to go off into the world, to be successful husbands, fathers, businessmen, successful people in our communities one day. And so I try to teach them in that manner. Now, I did say I will yell at the group, right? I don't yell at individuals. I'll call an individual out and say, hey, you need to get on your job. You need to do what you're supposed to do because everybody else is counting on you, right? But I'm going to go to you face to face and have that conversation because, again, I'm trying to stay right in the middle. I'm trying to make sure we understand and that you understand where I'm coming from as I'm attempting to get my point across, right? Now, when I yell at the group, I can be a bit harsh in what I'm saying because I'm always yelling at the group if I'm yelling at the group for them to up their level of play. And the only way sometimes kids or anybody is going to up their level of play is if you are harsh and you're direct about certain things. But once you're done yelling, you go back to being right in the middle and you see how the kids are going to react. I've always had a really good player coach relationship with the kids I've coached and the units I've been on to the point where I can yell at a kid or at a group of kids and they don't blow up on me. They accept my words because I'm always kind in what I say and I'm always very meaningful with what I say. And so again, me being right in the middle majority of the time allows me to get really high with the kids and then get really low in certain moments with the kids. So that's why I try to stick right in the middle. Again, it's everybody's preference. Everybody's going to do certain things certain ways because, some people are that's who they are by nature. Some guys are yellers by nature. You find some guys that are very soft spoken by nature, right? And for me, I've always been the trash talker. I've always been the guy that is going to tell you this is how we're going to do things. These are the results I expect. And I'm going to give you X amount of opportunities to help us get those results. And if you can't help us get those results, well, then we got to make some changes, right? And that might mean you play a little less. That might mean you get a new position, or we find another way to get the results we're attempting to get. So again, being right in the middle is always my philosophy or my views on things. But like I said, you got to enjoy the moments. Like, it's a roller coaster of emotions when you are a part of this game. Kids are gonna want to fight because emotions, they care. They do care. But if you're even keel and you handle yourself a certain way, then when y'all get in certain moments, those kids are going to learn to handle themselves a certain way, as opposed to, it's a hype moment. Other kids are yelling at that kid. Now you start yelling. Now that kid feels like, oh, I got to have my coach back. So now I'm going to start yelling too, right? Certain things you want to try to avoid. So certain ways of going about doing things, again, just require you to be in the moment. So if you can enjoy the moments, you don't gotta trash talk everybody. When I trash talk, I try to trash talk my own kids to see if it'll help them play better. Right. A couple years ago, I had a 6'4" receiver, and I used to just talk trash to him throughout the course of a game. Like, you really let that little guy check you? Like, he's smaller than me, and you letting him cover you? Come on, man. I thought you said you was prime time. Like, little stuff like that. So when I'm talking trash, again, I'm trying to up your level of play. I'm trying to get you in the moment to maybe you're in a lull, maybe you're right in the middle. So maybe I need to get you to take some steps to get out of the middle for a second. And again, if you know your players, if you know the moment, then sometimes that stuff works. Sometimes you might talk your kid out of making a play. Sometimes you might put a little too much pressure on them with your trash talk. So enjoy the moments though. You gotta enjoy the moments. Don't be too cool, too low to dance after a win. I get it. It's only a win on a Friday. It's not, a semifinal win to get you into the state championship game. That don't matter to the kids, man. The kids just want to see you happy that, hey, coach, we accomplished something. We went 1-0 tonight. That's what the kids want to see. Um, Kids don't always want to see, you be overkill, when it don't require you to be overkill. So enjoy the moments. Remember that it's about the kids, right? If you can remember that it's about the kids, and 9 times out of 10, the kids just want to see you care, right? The kids want to see that you're invested just like they're invested, because as coaches, we're gonna always talk about, oh man, the time I spent up here. I'm up here doing your laundry. I'm up here spending more time with you than I am with my own kids. And the kids don't care, right? The kids want to see that when they do something good, you're gonna celebrate them, right? The kids want to know you love them. The kids want to see how you react when they do something bad. They want to see how you react when they do something good. So keep that in mind. It's about the kids, right? So when we're getting overly emotional, because we do, when we're getting, to the point where whatever, we're not showing a lot of emotions, just look around at the kids, right? Look at the kids who are still showing that they care, right? Because just about everybody has been in those games where you're in the third quarter, maybe you're in the fourth quarter, late in the game's already out of hand. You're not going to come back. It is what it is. Let's just say it's 2 minutes on the clock. You're down by 21. Other team just got a first down, right? Look at that kid on the sideline that's still invested, right? Still, every time they snap the ball, power, counter, right? Still yelling that stuff out, because it still matters to some of them. Some of them going to tap out and just say, oh man, it's over. They don't fold their arms, take their helmet off, go sit under the tent, throw their helmets, right? I don't know where kids have gotten this throw your helmet thing. I could never do that when I was playing. That was crazy. But it's about the kids. But look around and see the ones that it does matter to. And just walk and stand beside those kids. Just go hang out with those kids. And you only got to ask them why, because hopefully you as a coach already know why it matters to them. But just keep that in mind, right? And again, as I said, I try to be even keel. I have my high moments, I have my low moments, but I do so out of the love of the game, right? I do so because I know the kids care, because I want the kids to understand that I care. And I just think it's important to know when to be high, when to be low, when to be even keel, and when to show emotions, because when a kid's showing emotions, it truly means that what's happening around them, what this game is doing to them, for them, and with them as a person, it matters, right? So that's all I got, man. Again, Dr. Coach A, right? This is One Life to Live with myself, Dr. Coach A. You can again still follow me on Twitter. That's the number 1 Life, LYF, the number 2, LIV, the number 3. One Life to Live. Also at Dr. Coach A. You can also find me on Instagram at Dr. Coach A. If you ever need anything, you want to reach out to me, hit me up in those spots. I appreciate you for listening. This has been another episode of One Life to Live with Dr. Coach A. Thank you for listening.
Fotiel.